Welcome to Boss Bitch Radio. I am here today with my lovely co-hostess, Miss
Amanda Glitters.
We are a little distant today, so she's over on Zoom land over on her end, and I am in my office. But today we are going to talk about a lot of topics related to dieting, maintenance, and bulking, right? But I want to ask you, are you feeling overwhelmed? Because there's a lot of conflicting advice out there as to cutting calories. Should I be dieting? Should I be building muscle? If you are, you're in the right place. We're going to break it down without the confusion. And if you are thinking, oh, this episode's probably not for me, I'm not fit yet, these aren't things I need to worry about, this is especially for you. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. No, absolutely.
Yes. So we are going to talk about a few things. The topics we're going to cover today is the difference between going into a weight cut, aka going into a diet phase. We're going to talk about maintenance and what that means, which is essentially, like it sounds, keeping things the same, and some things to consider there. And then we're going to talk about bulking. And these are three terms that are thrown around pretty widely, mainly more in the bodybuilding community, but I think they still apply to lifestyle clients. And so bulking is increasing food, hoping that you're going to add some muscle by way of also adding scale weight, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I have so many things to say about this, but I know we're not ready yet. So I'm like, just holding on to it.
We have it all planned out for y'all. Okay. So the reason why we wanted to bring this to light is because we want to make sure that you know what makes sense for you and you have a plan instead of just, oh, I think I'm going to go on a diet. Like, it should make sense for what your long-term goals are. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I feel like people either want to go down the hole or they want to go up the hole, but they're not sure how to get there.
Yes. Or they want to stay in one phase all the time. And I think, we'll go into the seasons and how to kind of figure out what that should look like. So we're going to talk about goals.
Yeah. What is your personal goal? What are you thinking? I feel like that's the thing that we need to talk about the most, is because I feel like people have one thought. They're like, oh, I want to go into a cutting phase. I need to lose some fat. But then they have to figure out the things that they need to do that. And then their goals might be different.
Exactly. So we have some things that you have to consider are, is it time to go into a dieting phase, right? Like, is it for competition, photo shoots, vacation, health purposes? Because if you go into that phase, you have to understand that you're likely not going to be building muscle. You'll be seeing muscle as your body fat decreases, but you're likely not going to be building muscle.
I feel like that's what everybody wants to do. They're like, okay, I'm going to do this, but while I'm in a deficit, I'm going to be building muscle because I want to change the shape of my body, right? So there's all different ways to do it, like the dieting phase, like you just said. For a maintenance phase, you have to see, are you happy with how you look? Maybe you want to recomp your body. But the problem is you can't do both of those things at the same time.
Yes. So that's something that I think a lot of people want when they first come to us and they fill out their intake stuff and we're like, what are your goals? And they're like, well, I want to build muscle and I want to lose fat. And I'm like, great. And we talk about this a lot in the podcast about how those are two opposing goals and you have to pick a horse and ride it. Or else you're going to just be kind of wavering in and out and you might have a little success and then you kind of are yo-yoing all over the place.
I feel like the one thing I get the most is like, I want to change the shape of my butt, but I want it to be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand that it needs to build muscle to where it has the shape while it can be smaller. So the thing is that's going to bring you either into your maintenance phase where you're trying to build muscle, you're kind of happy with where you look. The one thing that not most people do, or at least on purpose, is going to be a bulk. I know you've said that a couple times already today, and I'm like, don't do it because it's really not needed, right? In reality, what you're probably doing, you may or may not, especially if you're not doing it the right way, might be putting on more body fat than you are muscle. And then you're just making the dieting phase that will come, right? Because these are the things that we do in order to kind of change the shape of your body. It's going to be a little bit more difficult if you've gotten a little bit more weight on you.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people overlook that piece of it, right?
Yeah.
And then when one word that we've been hearing a lot, and I think that is something we should talk about too, is especially in the bodybuilding community. And I feel like it's done more by like real novice people that are super new to the industry and like kind of what it's about and really a little more green. If I'm
Right.
being completely honest, it's going into a bulk, right? And they think, well, I'm bulking, and they tell people that.
Right.
And, then I'm like, my next question is, are you, what division are you competing in? If you're competing in bikini, probably not needed unless you are underweight, right?
Right. Right.
Um, or are you competing in wellness and figure and things like that? And honestly, the bulk that people think, I think they get like so enamored by that because they get to eat more food and it's like so they get to just eat whatever. But
Right.
it's not, that is not done the smart way when you do it like
No.
that.
No, I feel
Yeah.
like, I mean, listen, right? It's been a long time. I was 280 pounds. I have not been the same weight since I lost weight the first time in the last 10 years. Okay.
Right.
It was like it's been up and down. And every year it gets a little bit easier and my static weight stays a little bit lower on its own. So I mean, that just goes to show that putting on more weight in order to put on more muscle, which we've obviously shown has made a huge change since when I started all of this, but there's ways to do it to where it can be fun and you can be benefiting, and then there's ways that you can do it that you're probably maybe putting a little bit more taxing on your body than you really need to in order to kind of get that change on your body.
Yes. And I think that it gets overdone a lot where people just they think they need to put on 40 pounds to gain 3 pounds of muscle,
Right. Well, I
you
mean,
know?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little guilty here. I get a
Yeah.
little squirrely in the off
Yes.
season,
We
but
both do. But the difference is that you're not telling people that you're bulking. You're just like, I'm not
well,
on my shit right now. I'm having
wait.
fun. I'm doing my thing.
But if I said I was in a bulk, does that mean like that's an excuse?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be an excuse.
Okay, well, that's
So,
what I'm gonna
so we're
start saying
basically
now.
telling you to stop using the bulk as a shitty excuse to eat like an asshole.
No, I'm hella honest. I actually I had somebody the other day ask me if I was still training, and I was like, buddy, I go, yeah, I'm still training, but I'm not doing 2 hours of cardio and I'm not eating cod all day. So
Did you
I'm gonna
slap
look
him
a
in the
little
face?
different. I was just like, excuse, get out of here, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
you don't even know what you're talking about right now.
Oh my
I
God.
actually,
Yeah.
what I told them? I said I would break them in half with my legs.
And you're not wrong. And maybe they needed that little life lesson.
It was pretty funny though.
Yes. Well, that is just in a summary what those sort of definitions are, what they mean, and why you should consider them, just kind of based off of your personal goals. Obviously, dieting, I feel like, is obvious.
Right.
Maintenance, if you're happy with your aesthetic, you can recomp your body there a little bit, but it is going to be a slower pace,
Yeah.
meaning you can gain muscle and lose body fat like we talked about, but it is very hard, very rare. And the longer you've been training, the harder it is. And then bulking is, again, a lot of times unnecessary for most women who have just aesthetic body goals, unless they want to be female bodybuilders. And what I mean by that is the bodybuilding division, not
Yeah.
like bodybuilding as a whole. Like, I'm a bikini girl, so that means I'm a bodybuilder,
No, no.
Right. So let's go into a little more specifics with maintenance. Okay. Maintenance sounds obvious, right? You're maintaining where you're at. And I like to just use myself as an example here right now, because this is where I'm at, right? I am not dieting. I'm definitely not bulking. If I do, I'm being an asshole and I'm just eating stupid things.
Right.
Um, and so I'm in the Goldilocks spot. Now, why this is important to sort of reach this destination is because your day-to-day should feel pretty effortless,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like I don't feel hungry. I don't feel stuffed all the time. I feel satiated, and I'm very in tune with my hunger cues. And I know that if I wanted to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, that would then have me feeling a type of way, which is probably hungry and
Yeah.
whatnot. But I can,
Yeah.
but I'm in a position where, and this is something that I tell people is how to know if this is a spot that's good for you is, do you feel good here? Is your lifting great? Do you feel good about your body? Do you feel confident? And that is very subjective, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody's going to be different, like you can look at one person and they would be like, "Oh yeah, no." Whether they feel good or not, you could think that they are like exactly what you want and they could have a completely different view on how they look.
Exactly. So with that, I feel like I've unlocked this level because I have spent a considerable amount of time doing the work. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, I had this conversation today because
okay.
it's Thanksgiving, right? Okay, I
Hmm.
don't know when this drops, but obviously after Thanksgiving, but it's
Yes.
Thanksgiving and everybody's like, "I'm traveling, I'm not going to be able to get my workouts in and blah 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 and all of this." And I'm like, "Listen, girlfriend, this is why you're consistent on all the other days so you can take a break. Like 3 days is not going to mess anything up." Or,
Yes.
for us, instead of training 6 days a week, we're training 4, maybe 5 days a week.
Hmm.
Instead, we did the work. So we had the foundation.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I think when you can get to a spot where you're like, I don't need to be dieting and I don't need to be like constantly pushing for hardcore muscle, you have unlocked the level of like body happiness, like body, contentment. And also you have to be very discerning with that, right? Like, okay, I'm comfortable with this, but is this technically healthy? I think that's when your subjectivity needs to be
Right.
like, you know,
Right.
examined
I
is
mean,
okay, right. I'm all for body positivity 1,000%, but also there is a health component to that too, right?
right.
So for me, I feel like when you can come to a spot where you are fine at maintenance, it's enjoyable, um, it's a lot, your mental health is a lot more relaxed and you're more positive about food and you're more mindful, right? And you
Right.
can hang out there. So I'm fine with my amount of cardio, my amount of training, and nothing is really going to change here for me unless I'm going through like a period of gym boredom or something like that. And I'll maybe like mix some stuff up in as far as maybe like my training split. But the foundation of what I'm doing is not going to change, right?
Right.
I'm not all of a sudden gonna be like, okay, I'm at maintenance. I love where I'm at right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and stop weight training and I'm just gonna go do yoga for my only, and there's nothing wrong with yoga, but as far as like if I wanted to maintain this,
Right.
yoga is not going to maintain this. What I have been doing for 20 years is what's going to maintain it.
Keep doing the same things. Don't stop. Right.
Yes,
I feel
changing
like,
the orders of the exercises maybe and things like that, but yeah.
yeah, no, you're going to go to the gym, you're going to move your body, you're going to be active, and then the thing is the foods as well is also part of it too.
Yes, that's a huge part of it. So I know right now I'm not tracking macros, I'm not tracking calories, I'm not tracking protein, I am not tracking anything. Okay. I'm on a schedule of eating every 2.5 to 3 hours. And I have a bar and a shake maybe a day and like 2 or 3 meals because that works for my schedule and just my workflow and my appetite and everything like that. But it feels like body freedom, like I'm released from the prisons of having to know every morsel that goes in my mouth.
I feel like we've kind of unlocked that a little bit. So, like, we're living in this maintenance area and we're feeling really good, and we don't necessarily have to track all the things, but in our minds, we know what we're doing. We know
Yeah.
what's going in. We know if things get a little squirrely on the weekends, we're always very good during the week. And it
Yes.
never gets too far out of hand anymore. So I feel like we found that Goldilocks spot where it's like, okay, we've got this.
And it
And
took I mean, it took some practice and
a lot.
a lot of like
Well, I mean,
figuring out.
even saying like we've been doing this for 10 plus years, like that's how long it took to be able to get to feel like, okay, I'm comfortable. I've got this. And, it just feels good.
Yes. And it's just a nice spot to be in. And I think it's kind of funny because we teach women how to track their macros and like obviously get ready for contest prep and things like that. And I also know that part of our coaching, even though we don't lead with that, right? Like we don't tell people, well, we're going to teach you how to live a healthy lifestyle. Cause like everybody be like, boo, I don't want to do that. I just want to have flat abs. Right. But I think through our methods, while we get them their results, their mindset changes about things.
Yeah.
Right. Like being, having a flat stomach is less important than it was maybe when they started. And because now they're realizing all the other benefits
Yeah.
to their life that have happened when they clean things up. So, our MO is that we teach people how to include their favorite things and be able to do that with macro tracking and flexible dieting and things like that. And then naturally their palates change, their taste buds change, and then they start to understand they're doing more of a balanced approach.
Yeah, it was so funny today. I was reading a check-in and it was one of my girls was saying, oh, we're done with competing, now. So she was gonna like go back to her normal coffee, with like creamer and all the things. And she's like, it wasn't that good. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
it was too sweet now. She's like, I think I've changed, and I go, this is what happens, you just start to build these other taste buds and these other habits where it's like, I like this and it's better than the other way. And then we're cutting and we're making room for all kinds of things everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. All right, should we dive into dieting?
Yeah, let's go into the weight cut. So there's a couple of things, there's pros and then there's cons, right? So I feel like this is kind of us trying to see where do you live in these different phases. So the weight cut phase right now, a couple of things that you are going to be able to do, which is probably the fun part,
Mm-hmm.
is be able to see the muscle that you've put on, right? Because as of right now, you have the muscle, but it's just kind of covered up. It's covered up. She's trying to grow, right? And then what you want to do is be able to lose the fat that's on top of the muscle to be able to see the muscles that you built. So I think the funny thing that people don't realize is that when you're shredded, technically you're smaller than when you're not shredded.
Yeah, but it's funny because when people see your photos, your stage photos, like, oh my God, you're freaking huge. And I'm like, I'm really not. I'm like
I'm
a
so
dried up
tiny.
raisin. Yeah, yeah, totally.
So the other thing that you can kind of figure out in a weight cut, especially since you're going to be seeing your muscles now, is like, where do you need to grow or where do you want to grow the muscles? Say you're a woman and you're like, okay, I need a bigger lower body and you're pretty built up top. So we're not really sure until you kind of lose a little bit more weight to see what we can keep on as muscle. And that way, if we're like, okay, it's not your quads that need to grow, it's your glutes, or it's not your hamstrings, it's something else. So I think that's,
No,
yeah,
I was just going to say, not to interrupt, but to interrupt.
yeah,
I think we see this a lot with clients. Well, at least because I do physique assessments, right? And so a lot of the physique assessments, um, women will think, oh, I'm going to be wellness for sure because I have such big legs, right?
right.
And we'll link up the physique assessment so you can kind of see on that page what that looks like, where I talk through a whole video on giving somebody some feedback. But it's like I always know, I can usually tell by looking at a body where I'm like, I don't want to say for certain, but we're gonna need to put you in a cut to kind of see because you may think you have big legs, but is it body fat or is it
Right.
muscle?
Right. And not everybody is blessed as I am
Yeah.
in the thigh department. Okay.
Yes.
And I feel like, another thing that is not really noted as well is like, what's your background with that too? You have to have a background in something and also to be able to have those bigger lower bodies. So you don't
Like
know.
sports and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you don't know, or if you've like been weightlifting for a long time, like you will not know if it's actually going to be enough girth to have a quad there, or maybe you just get some lean little bikini legs, which I think are hot too.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other couple of things, with like a weight cut though, I feel like you kind of touched on this earlier, is that maybe it's for health, right? Maybe you're feeling like, when you're walking up the stairs, you're grunting a little bit more than before, or you're leaning over, you're trying to tie your shoes and you're like, I'm a little out of breath. Or even if you're like going on a walk. No, I know a lot of people, especially competitors that are like, have been doing cardio and maybe their prep was really hard and they come off of their prep and they're just like, I'm terrified to do cardio again. I'm like, just walk a little bit for your health. That's it, and you can kind of grow on that. But health benefits of like a weight cut, there's a bunch of different ways. Maybe, your body fat has just gone up a little bit and you need to pull that down. Maybe you're like I was and, you're obese and you actually need to get in there to kind of get your heart rate going to see if we can lose some weight.
Can we talk about how last year we were like, we needed
That's
to drop
that's
some
why
body fat?
that's why I said it was hard to tie our shoes.
Yes, because in full transparency, Amanda and I last year, around this time, probably, or earlier this year,
Yeah.
we were definitely 10 plus pounds heavier, which doesn't seem like a lot,
I'm
but
5 foot for one.
yeah. And if you've ever had to carry, like, I don't know, I think a gallon of water weighs 10 pounds.
I used to know that, but you could be
Anyhow,
right.
just try and just imagine carrying that extra just 10 pounds around with you all day long and how tiring that would be all day long, right? So mini cuts is kind of another one in here too, but that's something that Amanda and I don't even think we really did a mini cut. We just were like, okay, we need to cut back
Yeah.
our weekly getting together with the girls, actually nightly almost, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was a little extra, but I feel like we've been we've started with a cut, right? And then obviously we eat some more. So we're in a maintenance, we're in a cut, we're in a maintenance. We've competed a bunch of times. That's exactly what that is, just a little bit more on the extreme nature. And it's like, I think even with this situation that you're talking about right now, we went into a cut, but without really like being like, oh, we're going in a cut.
It wasn't like, yeah, and that's
It,
probably better for us,
I
honestly.
I think that's why it worked out so much better. And we're
We
like,
just
all
cleaned
of a
up our
sudden,
habits.
all of a sudden we were like 10 pounds lighter and we're like, oh, we weigh the same again, but it's much less than it was before.
Yeah. Yeah. We took our own advice. But
Oh
it's
my
hard when,
goodness.
yeah, I know, but it's hard when you are a robot bodybuilder, right? And like, right? It's
Yeah.
so strict, so regimented, which we're going into the cons too. And then you try to like be a normie, is what we call it. And so it's just like, how do, how do I be a
How do
normie?
how do you do that?
How do I not eat everything or nothing?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we really kind of learned and it's gotten so wonderful. So
Yeah.
before we start talking about the great benefits of a weight loss, the benefits of the cut, let's talk about some cons, right? Because there's always going to be two sides to every story. And I feel like this is a lot with your mindset. If you're not ready for a cut, that's going to be not so great. Okay. But, the thing about this is sometimes if you're going into a cut for too long, which I see this all the time, all the time. If you're too long in a cut, it's going to cause issues. But I also think the problem is that the issues we're never really sure until we kind of dig deeper into the problems.
Say more.
So, like, if you are in a cut forever, your body is going to get stuck there. It's going to be like, okay, this is my new life, right? And the only way you're going to be able to cut more weight is if you continue to either pull your macros or do more cardio. And if you're already doing a boatload of cardio, how are we going to continue to do that?
You're gonna live on the cardio machine.
No, I cannot.
I cannot either. Yeah.
I
I
cannot.
mean, you're 100% right here. There's so many negative repercussions of dieting for too long. I mean, you and I are perfect examples of that,
Yeah.
it can cause thyroid issues, it can cause hormonal disruption, you
Mhm.
can lose your hair, you can lose your period. These are all obviously, systemic or, physiological cons, right? Where that's out of your control to a degree.
Right.
But then we have the other potential dietary issues, right? Like food fixation and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing too, is if you are in this cut and you're in the cut all week or whatever, say it's too much, basically all you're going to think about is food. Like, when is my next meal? What is it going to be? You know, when is the next time I'm going to have this cheat meal, which then leads you to wanting to have that cheat meal, you know, and then that's just like mentally difficult.
Very, very.
Mentally difficult.
It takes up a lot of mental real estate all day long.
Yeah, I feel like, so with that, you know, then what's going to happen is you're going to be like, okay, I ate that thing. Now I need to go to the gym and I need to run it all off. And that is not going to create any kind of deficit for what it is. It's just going to make the whole situation more worse. Then you're going to want more food because you did more cardio. So now you're in this big circle where you're back to wanting that same food that you already had, or move more food. If you would have just kind of sat down, drank some water, hung out, you could have been okay. The other thing, the last thing on this guy is everybody's going to be like, well, I want to build muscle. But if you're in a cut and you're trying to get leaner, you're not going to build any muscle.
Yeah.
There's no way that your muscles have nothing to live on and grow off of.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is something that I hope, if you take nothing away, you take at least this nugget, because I know for a fact, just because of the nature of being in the fitness industry for so long and then being a woman, is that I think I've spent more of my life in a diet than I haven't, right?
Oh, yeah.
And well, obviously not, into adolescence, like the first 14 years of my life were free of that worry. But always already very aware of like body image and stress around that, and like having negative body image. And then being in constant diets even before I started bodybuilding, right?
Yeah. I mean, as a heavy teenager, you know, I knew I was. And so it was like, sometimes I would get embarrassed and I would try and lose weight, and then I would look good and everybody would be like, oh, you look good. And then it would be like this crazy cycle to where I would lose it and I would fall off because what I was doing was too hard. And, you know, it creates some things.
Yeah, it creates a lot of things. A lot of things. We're getting deep with this one.
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I know, but I think it's important conversation, for us to be transparent. I especially think it's important because we are, we're in roles where we educate women about this stuff, and we are constantly in touch with women. And it is our duty, at least I feel as if it is mine, with having a platform like a podcast and social media and things like that, is educating women about, it's okay if you want to have body goals. It's okay if you want to diet. It's okay for all these things. And you also need to know when those things turn into unhealthy behaviors, and have somebody to work with you on that, that piece of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because sometimes a lot of times we are our own worst enemies, and we see something in the mirror that is just not entirely accurate, and we, fixate on those things and then decide all these other things based off of a thing we saw in the mirror, right? Like, I can't have sex with the light on. I can't wear shorts. I can't wear a tank top, like all these things. And I'm just like wanting that to not be a thing.
We are our own worst enemies. The one thing that I can tell anybody, and I say this all the time, I've said this in the podcast before, if you would not say that to your best friend, why the fuck are you saying it to yourself?
Yeah.
Why? I would never do that,
Yeah, exactly.
However, it's a practice.
It is a practice.
It's a practice.
It took us a minute. So, all right. So we talked about maintenance. We talked about going into a cut. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some things to consider if you're more of like a lifestyle client, right? You're not really in the camp of like, I'm not a hardcore bodybuilder, but like, I do some things and I might want to, tone up or lose some weight still or whatever, right? So not necessarily falling in the category of bodybuilder / competitor, right?
Right.
So something I like to tell clients about or educate, at least through the podcast, and we talk about this too, is looking at your dieting as a phase and a cycle. No matter how much weight you have to lose, that's how you want to look at your body goals. Okay. Now, if you are, clinically obese and have medical conditions and things, obviously that's a different conversation. However, you just want to get in shape. You want to do the things. You have to look at your year. Ideally, this is what I suggest, right?
Yeah.
We have seasons here in California. We have summer, spring, fall, winter, which is fantastic for us. So it's nice to look at your body goals in these kind of like either quarters or cycles.
Yeah.
And the way that I usually advise this is 2023 is right around the corner, right? What do you have going on? Are there events? Are they vacations? Are there big projects? Like things like this.
Yeah.
And then decide where you want to put in your diet cycles based on those. Maybe that's associated with a goal. Maybe you're going to Cancun in July or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So plan them accordingly and then plan in some maintenance phases around that to rebuild your metabolism, work your calories back up, hang out in that spot for a minute. It might not be your final destination. That's okay.
It may not be your favorite destination.
Yeah, but what it's going to do is it's going to prevent diet fatigue, workout fatigue, all of those things to where you're just like, I'm over this shit. I'm just going to go back to my old ways.
Yeah, I have so many clients that we're already talking about 2024. I've even talking to girls about 2025. Like that's crazy, but it's always going to be something coming up. And I think it's a really great way to kind of keep your goal and be able to reverse engineer all of this. If, the diet phase and all of that and looking the way a certain way and changing the shape of your body, it's a great way for you to kind of really see that happen throughout the months and really just not feel like you're burnt out.
Most definitely. And the other thing that it does is it sets your wheels in motion when you have a plan, right? Because if you're just going to jump on the, New Year's resolution bandwagon and your plan is, I'm just going to join the gym January 1st. That's not a plan. No. That is not a plan. That's an action. That's an action.
I was going to say that too, but it's kind of just a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's not even, there's nothing behind it.
Exactly. And some people are, well, I don't really have any goals. Okay, that's fine. You don't need to have like I want to be this percent body fat and I want to have 21-inch biceps or whatever, right? You don't need to have something super granular like that, but you need a plan in place with some kind of reaching goal. So you know that you are achieving milestones along the way to achieve that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not celebrating the small things either, why are you going to keep doing the things? Why do you want to keep doing the things? If you can make yourself some like small little baby goals along the way, that's how it's going to keep you going.
Exactly. Now, the other thing you need to consider as well, even if you're just a lifestyle client, is no matter what cycle you decide to go into. So if you decide to go into a dieting phase and then you're like, okay, I'm going to diet for 12 weeks. Or I'm going to do a mini diet. If you haven't really done a diet before, maybe you do 6 or 8 or something like that, super, super focused. And then I'm going to just, start to work my calories up and go into a maintenance. The thing that you have to consider, no matter what phase you decide to go into, is that you need to keep your weight training the foundation of your life. Okay. No,
it's a non-negotiable.
That's my opinion, but you need to keep that weight training the foundation of your programming, even if you're in a cut, because what happens is that normies or, people who don't understand the importance of weight training in a diet phase, they think they just need to just go do cardio and I just need to run because I need to lose weight. That ends up usually bad. They end up quitting or giving up or whatever. And then they're the people that we see after they've lost 20 or 30 pounds who are like, oh my God, I lost 30 pounds because I started doing cardio and keto or whatever. And now I need to put muscle in here. And it's like, bitch,
You
you
should
should
have
have been
came to us
lifting.
first.
And yes, because
Yes.
that is what needs to be your foundation. Okay,
Well,
I'm on my soapbox.
let me get on it with you, okay? Because right
There's room
now,
right here.
I'm right here. Um, I did not lose weight before I started weightlifting. I literally was on the treadmill for 2 days. On the second day, a trainer came up to me and asked me if I wanted to weightlift, and I never looked back. And I weightlifted the whole time. And I have a little bit of loose skin, yes, but by all means, it is very minimal considering the way that I did it. Because as I was losing weight, I was also gaining muscle.
Yes, exactly. So super important that that stays your foundation. Honestly, the strategy in your weight training as far as like, okay, well, should I start doing like 20 to 25 reps or whatever? No. Whatever you did to build the muscle needs to also be what you do to maintain the muscle in a deficit.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, yeah, you could play around with different strategies like, drop sets and pyramid sets and, all kinds of rest pause sets, so many different techniques to like make your training sessions a little more intense, but don't turn them into cardio sessions. Okay. Keep them weight training sessions,
Right.
your classic hypertrophy bodybuilding weight training sessions. The
Yeah.
variables that are going to change depending on which phase or cycle you're in is going to be your diet.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the biggest piece. Your cardio, um, supplementation as a last thing. And that's more of like, are you adding in maybe like a fat burner or something for energy in your diet phase? In your maintenance phase, or are you taking something like a carb, blocker, something like berberine, something like that, that's kind of helping with a little more influx of food. So things like that will change, but do not stop lifting and do not think you need to drastically switch up your weight training and turn it into cardio, please.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
with all of that too, it's like somebody will be like, okay, well, what do I need to do? And it's like, okay, I need to know some more things because all of these need to be kind of like a personalized approach. You need to be able to figure out, what's going on in your life. Are you ready for a cut? Maybe you're happy with where you're at and you want to stay where you are. If you're very overweight, you might want to work with somebody to help you balance, like do this as like a lifestyle play, like way, because, say I was 280 pounds and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. At that point, if that trainer would have given me a diet, because I wasn't ready for that yet, if he would have given me a diet of egg whites and chicken and rice and broccoli,
Yummy.
it would not have worked. It would not have worked. So, I did it slowly. I did it with like diet cycles, and then I would gain weight and then I would lose weight, but the one thing that never changed is I never stopped training.
Yeah.
And I still train the same way today as I did 10 years ago.
I love that.
I feel like the other thing too is like you have to kind of take in consideration where you're at. What are your habits already? If you don't have the basics habits yet, maybe you need to kind of stick to this maintenance phase until you can get some basic habits. And then you can kind of work your way into that cut. Because I think what people don't understand is you're going to be hungry if you're in a cut. And you need to kind of figure out how you can be able to get through that without causing any binges or swings either way. And so it's like, it's really, for me, it's a mental place to figure out, where you're going to be and then figuring out what I need for me.
Yes, exactly. The demands that you're going to need to go into those phases. Super
Yeah.
important. I know we talk about that often when we try to convince people not to compete. I mean, we don't, because that's what we do. I'm like, that would just be nonsense. But we just like to make sure people are aware of
No,
the commitment.
I feel like what it is I absolutely love competing, but we want to be 1000% honest with what it's going to take. I would never want somebody to go into a competition prep and have no clue what's coming at them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because it's as simple as like, I've had people just think that, when they compete, that they're going to be just eating protein bars and shakes all day. And I've had athletes come to me from other coaches, in fact, that were doing that. And that's not the way.
It's not.
It's
not. But I mean, that's the same reason that we're doing this podcast. If you're in a lifestyle kind of a way, you're not really sure what you're doing, you kind of want to lose weight, but you're kind of okay with where you're at and you're kind of hungry. So you want to eat some more. Like that's why we're here.
Exactly. And on that note, this whole podcast, the purpose was we want you to think about your health and your body goals in advance as a project. Okay. Not because you're not, fine how you are or whatever, but if you are desiring some change in your body aesthetic, the shape of your body, your health, think of it as a project. Get excited for it. Like, how can I make this something that I can succeed at and live like this, for some time. And this is not just a temporary fix. So it helps you create a plan for success so you don't continually just join the gym January 1st, right? So
have a plan.
Yes. So have a plan, make it a project. And we actually do that. So we can get you on track for your body goals. Clearly, that's what we do. If you're enjoying hanging out with us for any moment of time, this is how we coach. We're very straightforward. We want to make sure that you're set up for success. And one of our main offerings is our Goddess Body Project, which is essentially giving you a project to work on 12 weeks, which is yourself.
We got your goals.
So we are enrolling now for the Goddess Body Project, and you can check out the link in the description box as well as the show notes. We have an in-person component. We have a VIP one-on-one, more online, with a coach component. I think that version is really good if this episode resonated with you, where you feel like you need a little more guidance for that, to structure in some diet cycles and things. And then we have our group component, which is also really great for you to set a goal and stick to it for 12 weeks in a group setting. So if that sounds like you, you know where to find us. Hit us up in the DMs if you have any questions. And we'll get you set up with a plan for success so you can quit spinning your wheels.
That's right.
All right. We're done here. Awkward silence. All right, you guys, this was a really great time. We hope to see you over on the interwebs, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.